Hey everyone, Margarita here. I want to talk in this video today about how extreme and how sick the obsession is with my mother destroying my life. She has been hyper focused on destroying every move I make, everything I've been building, all of my life plans, all of my business plans, every which way I've made money all along the way, anything involving my two older children. That is why she is not allowed to have a relationship with my youngest child since his birth 9 years ago. The obsession is such a sick, extreme degree. This is a Criminal Minds type situation. And this is part of the reason she's been able to carry this out for so long. Because when I try to explain to people, my mother this, my mother that, all along the way, from the time I was a small child all the way to the current day, they immediately think of their own mother and just automatically believe that my mother would never do these things. Not even 1% of what I have to say comes out of my mouth. And they already jump to that conclusion. Because this is extremely rare. It is Munchausen by proxy. It is narcissistic personality disorder. It is numerous disorders that are all not technically diagnosed, although there is a professional involved and has been for over 5 years now. This type of extreme obsession, it's just so abnormal. There is no other case like this out there. Even the Eminem's mom and Gypsy Rose situation, this is slightly different, but it is very extreme. And this is criminal in nature on so many levels, because not only has she been in the background hyper focused on destroying my life and every move I make from the time I was a young child. This started when I was in preschool at about age 4, continued on into grade school, middle school, high school. And then as soon as I bought my first home at 18, continued on using large agencies all along the way to the current day, and I'm 41. It has never stopped, even though I cut ties over 20 years ago with her directly and her entire family. So she's been able to control the false narrative. Now, this is not normal for anything to go on for that long of a period of time, for someone to be that hyper-focused for that long of a period of time, for decades, someone's entire life basically, on destroying every move that they make in life. I'm literal about all of this. I literally mean she has destroyed every business I had ever started, regardless of how long it ran for, some for short periods of time, some for years. She's used others to help her along the way as well. She's forced me from 3 of the homes that I've owned out of the 4. I did get to come back to this one because it was an extremely urgent medical situation where my brain was bleeding, but it was her actions that caused me to be forced to be living in the home in that manner, because Ford Motor Company in the city of Flat Rock, Michigan was actually responsible. But due to our medical condition being left untreated, which she is also responsible for, inserting herself in that, once my son and I became extremely injured with carbon monoxide and had brain injuries from it, our brains exploded internally and our blood-brain barrier disintegrated. We were left without treatment in the traditional medical system initially, and then going forward, left without treatment each additional time we were seeking treatment down the line, because we suffer ongoing effects from that day years ago, and we will for the rest of our lives. Our injuries are permanent. So because she inserted herself all along the way in all these different situations, it has then led to all of these problems in my life all along the way. It is not normal for something to go on for that long. All of these people and agencies have helped her. The damage is done within our medical records in our file. They continue to operate on the false information that's been put in there. Each time we're brought back, so we can't even seek proper medical treatment at numerous different hospitals, anywhere within driving distance pretty much of where I live here in Michigan. And, even though she's been retired, and we treated at the private center for some years, and we do have our own home hyperbaric chamber. That's how I've managed to keep us alive. And the only reason that has happened is because of my life's work and the amount of money I've made throughout my life. Now, all the different businesses I've had along the way have been disrupted. Several places that I've worked at as well, because I did start on the bottom. I started working in restaurants. I never made minimum wage. I always made some hourly rate plus tips. when I did work in the restaurant and bar industry, and never made minimum wage, was gainfully employed by age 16 and making more than her by age 16. That's how I purchased my first home at 18. I stayed at the same company for 5 years. I worked for Steak and Shake for 5 years. And I was making good money. So even then, there was numerous places down the line, due to her actions and behind the scenes actions, that she was always involved in placing delusional phone calls. It caused problems with my 2 older children, and it caused problems with places I've worked at where I'd then have to leave abruptly, or a fallout from one of her escapades would cause me to have to leave the place altogether. And that's part of the reason I did become self-employed in 2007. However, before my injury 7 to 9 years ago, I always had numerous streams of income, numerous forms of employment. So I did numerous things for years until I became injured. And then it wasn't possible for me to continue doing numerous things. I was barely alive, struggling to keep everything running, to even keep us alive, not knowing if we were going to live for 3 years. But all those years prior, I managed to hold on to everything and continue to accommodate the chaos and the crimes and all of the problems due to how I had numerous streams of income, and I had full control over my self-employment and any other businesses I was running. But if too much chaos erupted, then I would have to shut down that business altogether. So that has happened numerous times as well. But the manner in which I remained self-employed was the glue holding everything together all along the way during the extreme parts of the chaos, the extreme parts of the injury. That is what allowed me to hold everything together in the end, still be where I am today, still manage to hold on to everything. And I did get to come back to this home after the gas particles had cleared enough. It took about 2 years of natural precipitation in order for the particles to be clear enough for me to return to this home. So I've owned this home now for 8 years. And part of the jealousy and envy and the extreme harassment and the hyper-focused on destroying everything is due to the home itself. The home is very large. What I have is something she could have never done on her own. I do believe she's told other people that other people pay my bills, or my dad's been paying my bills, or this was my ex's home, or I don't know what exactly she's told people. But everything's been mine all along the way. Every home I've owned has always been mine. It was always all of my work, all of my money. Nothing, it was in my ex's name for a short period of time, and that was also due to the ongoing crimes of my mother at the root, why that had to happen. But years ago, he did sign his half over to our youngest child. Because he knew it wasn't his work, it wasn't his money, it wasn't his investment, nor did he want to partake in, maintaining any of that either. But it wasn't part of his plans, and he wasn't in my plans either. So that's why it was signed over. So I don't know exactly the false narrative, but I do know that the nature of the false narrative is just so extreme, and she's gotten so many agencies and other individuals. There's tiers to this. She's at the top. There's a top tier level of individuals, somewhere around 5 or 10, who are the main characters in the top tier. Then there's more on the third tier, probably a good 10 to 20, and possibly a fourth tier. There's definitely 3 to 4 tiers of individuals and different degrees of the level of crimes and participation. Because you have to think, this has been going on since I was a child. This has been going on almost 40 years now. So the amount of homes I've had to leave, I've also left 2 homes that I rented due to the agencies chasing me and the harassment. Due to all of that, the amount of money I've lost along the way, all of the disruptions within my businesses or whatever form of employment I was doing at whatever time, it's disrupted many different things, and then has caused periods of time where I'd have to not work at all to address the chaos and the crimes, and then the police are involved in the crimes, so I wasn't getting help. I was getting harassed even further, and more crimes were being committed against me by the people who are supposed to be getting this type of thing under control, because they then believe everything this deranged lunatic had been telling them all along. So the extreme nature of this has led to my permanent injuries, my son and I being permanently injured, permanently disabled for the rest of our lives, Now my plans have been able to slowly move forward, but because I've always worked at a rapid rate, and I've always worked alone. I work alone, I build alone in silence. It's always been that way since I was a teenager. So no one is realizing that either. No one ever has the full picture of what exactly I'm doing because I don't share that with people. I've always owned real estate since I was 18. This is my third home. I bought a fourth one after this. Once we were living with our brains bleeding, I then purchased that home. Working on still selling that one right now. I've had it for 3 years. And people wouldn't be able to handle what I've handled, the extreme nature of all this. This has caused so many wipeouts. I've literally been wiped out down to nothing 3 solid times, and now I'm under Chapter 13 bankruptcy. So a fourth wipeout, but I get to keep all of my assets and pay everything back in the end. And then my payments revert back to just my normal mortgage payment with all debts paid. So, it's not normal for someone to have to constantly deal with wipeout after wipeout while being worried about this agency chasing or this person harassing or people constantly being paid to insert themselves in my life, because that's been going on a very long time as well. Definitely over 12 years. That's definitely been going on for over 12 years. But I've always kept to myself. Don't usually date people. I'm not saying I never go out, but it's different now that I'm injured. Prior to my injury, I did go out a little more. But after my injury, during the time of my injury, I didn't go anywhere at all for some years, and I was completely incapacitated. But, coming out of the extreme part of the injury, yes, I do go some places sometimes. However, I still operate alone. And due to the nature of my injuries, it would be harder to bring somebody into what I deal with and the fallout. I'm always dealing with constant fallout, and it's been fallout on top of fallout on top of fallout for decades, on top of the injury, and the injury is part of the fallout. So you have to watch all the videos to completely understand everything I'm talking about. If you watch the playlist on my abnormal life, and my mother's ongoing crimes, you'll understand it a little better. Watch the first 5 intro videos first before you do anything, and then maybe a little bit of the carbon monoxide poisoning story, and then click about through the different playlists, because they're all connected. Now, because I'm self-made, self-built, and I've had many streams of income along the way and started at a very young age, I've managed to somehow accommodate all of this and barely hold on to everything each step of the way. Even after all of the restarts. So this is just completely abnormal. I don't know another individual that would be able to pull off what I've pulled off. A criminal minds team really does need to be brought in, and the top tier level of individuals needs to be taken down immediately. I am working on gathering another set of documents to expose some of the top tier level individuals. They should be ready in less than 2 weeks for me to at least get that part out. It is a pretty significant piece to the puzzle. And I do have about 90% of what's all gone on all these decades. I do have about 90% of the picture all pieced together. I've been working on this for about 7 years now, since my injury. And it was basically my mother's deranged actions during my injury when it was extreme that began to tell on herself. And then at the same time, my brain was injured and memories were coming back that I wasn't aware I was even missing. So this fully allowed me to piece everything together, her actions during all of this, things she was doing, saying. She was causing my dad to bring items to my house in totes, which was then telling on her from decades ago. And then she didn't realize I had brought in a professional already, who I then brought the totes of stuff to show, because I knew it was very extreme at this point. I was pretty well aware. And that's why she was brought in. And then from there, she began to watch the waves of chaos and destruction, because it comes in waves. Now, when my mother almost gets caught, when I almost get her caught, she pulls back heavily and stops. So this is definitely not neurotypical behavior. It is not normal for someone to spend, not just someone, but someone's mother, even though we've had no contact, and I cut all ties a long time ago due to all of this, because I saw there was an extreme problem as a young child. All those years ago. It's not normal for anyone to be that hyper-focused on someone's life and what they're building and what they're doing all the time. So I've kept my entire life private. That is also why I don't have social media. I didn't have social media until recently, until I started releasing all of my videos. Even then, I've only been using Facebook so far and YouTube until I get enough videos up, and I'll go back and do shorts and use some other forms of it, of getting the word out. But that is why I've had to keep my entire life private and everything I've been doing private. That's part of the reason I've never had a business partner. Not only that, I'm not around like-minded individuals, which is also at the root is my mother's crimes and actions, and all of her repeated negative behavior has caused me to not be allowed to be around like-minded individuals with similar mindsets. So I've always built alone. And people don't understand a lot about my lifestyle because they most likely did not walk anywhere near 50% in my shoes on how I've built things to how I have them today. Now, I did work for somebody else for about 20 years prior to my injury. While being self-employed, it did overlap for a significant period of time. But around 2012, the beginning of 2012, I was completely done working for other people altogether. I no longer needed to work for other people. And that was a significant change, but at the same time, you have to be very motivated, and your mindset has to be good, and your mental stability has to be intact, and you have to be very strong-minded in order to carry something out like that long-term, especially with no trusted business partner. So there was no problem there. The problem lied within the ongoing crimes, the repeated kidnappings of my children, the police harassment, the harassment of other agencies, all of the ongoing crimes of these departments against me. I'm just one individual, and having to accommodate all of this was the problem. Once my injury became extreme, it was intolerable to deal with the injury alone, let alone these additional problems with it. So that's what caused all this to start coming out. But part of the reason I've kept everything private, off the internet, off of social media, don't really tell people anything in person either, to a certain limit maybe, but I don't really tell people everything I'm doing, everything I'm building or working on, for all of these reasons, because nothing could ever be shared. And what I'm doing now is I'm sharing everything that's been going on all of these decades with the entire world. Because that is the only way to clear my name and apprehend the proper individuals, my mother at the root with the top tier level of individuals involved and everybody else involved at a distance. The only way to clear my name and be able to build my life and have some type of peace is to speak the truth about everything that has been going on and expose all of the decades of ongoing crimes, because now where we are today, the crimes are very extreme. Most of these people will be spending the rest of their life in prison once I'm able to get enough of the documentation legally. It is quite costly because there is so many crimes, but I do have at least 50% of it already, and I am working on the next set of videos currently and the next set of documentation, and I have a plan for it all to flow. Although currently, as of, May 31st, arrests have not been made yet. I don't think we're too far off from the top tier and my mother being arrested due to the amount of people I've reached out to, the different types of people and agencies, and with other crimes that have come out of this completely unrelated that are actually tied to all of these. It's spiraling and connecting all together as well at the same time in the background, completely out of my control. Now, this is just, I just want to talk about how abnormal this is. That's why she's been allowed to get away with all of this, because there isn't somebody else dealing with this type of situation. And all of these people had just believed everything she was saying about me for all of these decades, and the manner in which I had cut ties with everybody and walked off in my own direction and began building success even prior to that. Just nobody knew that, because at that time, internet still wasn't really a thing. Social media wasn't a thing. So it didn't matter. I wasn't on it anyway. Everything was kept private. And because I was off by myself building success, she was able to carry out the false narrative with all of these hundreds of individuals in the background without my knowledge, especially with no contact. That's how it was able to be carried out this long. But once things reached a certain point, once I knew I wasn't going to be able to rebuild in the manner in which I had in the past due to my injuries, which are due to the crimes long term, I knew I was going to have to start talking. And about 7 years ago, after my injury was extreme, I knew I was supposed to be delivering this information along with additional information I have outside of my mother's ongoing crimes and other situations in the world that I have knowledge on that the rest of the world does not. And that's also due to her crimes and how I've been forced to live my life. I have knowledge that the rest of the world does not have. So I've known I was supposed to be filming and releasing. I just did not know when that was going to be able to take place due to the nature of my injuries being so extreme and all of the disruptions and the chaos and the conflict. And there was about a 1.5 year period. I was having to run all over the place. It was about a year. But I did have to leave the general area where my main home is in Flat Rock, Michigan for a good solid year. It was about a 1.5 years I had to leave where the home is. But, and then I stayed put at my home in Ohio for some time, but I was running around back and forth for about a year because then my dad became severely injured. And at the root of that is my mother's crimes. And everything that has come out of that are all my mother's crimes. She has committed many crimes, many counts of fraud, many false police reports, many different agencies and police departments and police officers and attorneys and different law firms. They're all involved in helping her long term as well. So yeah, I've kept my entire life private. It is now time for the truth to come out, everyone to be exposed in every which direction. And along the way, I'm thinking all of these people now, because I'm like some degree into this, these people must have all really thought my life was a joke, or based on whatever she was telling them, that I'm some loser, some mental disorder, drug addict loser who never made it in life. And there was no way to verify any of this because I kept my entire life private and off the internet. And I made my money silently. And I'm actually like a low-key celebrity because I did make a name for myself on the streets. There is quite a few individuals who know me in 3 different states, who know who I am, who know Margarita and have met the real me, and don't know anything about the chaos and the conflict and the crimes. But there is many people who do know who I am due to my different lines of work and working with the general public in different areas. And in the nature of the different types of work, yeah, I have quite a huge following in person. There's many people who do know who I am in person. But that money was all made at a distance. None of it was directly near my home where I'm at, mostly in other states as well, or at least a half hour away. For numerous reasons. Obviously, I have gang stalkers and people who do not mean well for me. So the majority of some of these forms of income I was making and what I was doing along the way, I was a low-key celebrity. I am a low-key celebrity. These people all know who I am. I did different lines of employment for long periods of time, and even so as a self-employed individual, many people know who I am. Now, eventually the story's going to blow. There's going to be people coming out of the woodwork from all over talking about how they've met me because I am a low-key celebrity. I just don't share that with people. Because I'm so hyper-focused on keeping everything running and going due to all the chaos and crimes and conflict that I have to accommodate, along with my injury as well. That I don't have time outside of the times that I spent working to do other things outside of that. I mostly stayed hyper-focused on everything I needed to do to keep everything running. So all of these people know me through my different lines of employment, having to work with the general public most of the time I've spent working. Now, yes, I've owned real estate since I was 18, but there's many other streams of income I've had along the way, which all pertain to working with the general public as well. So the real estate thing, it's more, private and silent, but everything else was very fast-paced environments. Many individuals I'd cross paths with every time I'd work. People do know who I am. I'm just not somebody that's Googleable. So I'm sure there's going to be many people coming out of the woodwork here when all of this goes viral. It's going to blow. It's going to be all over the news. It's going to go viral. It's going to be a very famous case when it's all said and done. And all of these people are probably going to be talking about me or saying they've met me at some point in time. And these people all know the real me, not the false version. And other people that my mother has involved in the crimes with her, taking bribes and committing crimes against me and whatever they've been up to, they all believe the false narrative, not the real me. So they've all taken my streams of income and my businesses and everything I've been doing as a joke because of whatever she has told them that isn't real. And numerous people have told on themselves at this point regarding that. So everything I've been doing along the way, I'm a businesswoman. I was just severely injured with 5 brain injuries, heavy neurotoxicity. I live that way. I suffer ongoing effects day in and a day out, still to this day. And people misconstrue when they see me today, they misconstrue if I'm really not feeling good. And it comes in waves all day, every day. The pain it's continuous sometimes. It's extreme sometimes. I'm incapacitated sometimes. When they see this, they misconstrue that as a mental disorder because that's what my mother's been telling people for decades, way before my injury ever happened. Ironically, I just happen to have an internal injury to the brain, numerous of them, that happen. If you're not aware of what's actually going on, it looks that way. So, there's numerous problems with how others perceive me based on how they've met me. And the top tier level of individuals who've been told all of this stuff, especially if I'm trying to make a police report or something, they already have it in their mind. I have this mental disorder. And most likely if I'm trying to make a police report, it's because I'm in extreme distress. There's more extreme crimes going on. I'm living in chaos. I'm running all over. And if I'm living in that state, and I suffer symptoms ongoing every day, yeah, I'm probably not looking so hot while I'm trying to deliver this information. So then it looks like I have a mental disorder or a drug problem or whatever she's told them. So I know a lot of people think that I'm a joke or whatever I've been doing in life is a joke. It's not. I'm literally 100% self-made, self-built. If I had not been being wiped out all these times, I'd have been a millionaire a long time ago. But I was fortunate enough to be able to barely keep my head above water, to barely hold on to everything I do have. And everything I'm working on in the current is on a time limit to move forward with my next plans. Everything I have planned, business-wise and life-wise, all planned out 5+ years in advance. Every single thing I've done along the way. The problem is I keep having to accommodate the disruptions and the chaos, the conflict, the crimes. And there's constant disruptions because she's so hyper-focused on what I'm doing and destroying what I'm doing and building, because she can't have her false narrative not be true. She wants it to appear true to others because she's been carrying it out for so long, for over 2 decades, that she wants others to continue to believe her. So she's got to create the problems in my life using others around me because she can't control me, and using other situations that occur and inserting herself in them to make it look like all of that is real. So then that destroys what I'm working on and each step that I'm building and rebuilding, and then I have all these setbacks. But somebody in a normal world, in a normal life, this is not normal to have all of these intentional setbacks, because this is all intentional. These are crimes. These are RICO crimes. So I am getting there. I am going to be exposing every single person involved, every agency involved. I do have lists of names. I do have videos that are already filmed. However, it does have to be released in a certain manner, in a certain order. So I can't just come out with everything because people in general are not intelligent enough to be able to understand the extreme nature of what I've been through and the crimes and what's all gone on, that it has to be delivered in steps, spoon-fed, and baby spoon-fed in steps for others to understand what I've been dealing with and what's been going on. But no, none of my forms of employment or investments or anything I've been doing or my injury, none of it's a joke. None of it's over-exaggerated. I've literally worked my ass off my entire life for everything I've had all along the way, while I'm constantly being harassed and wiped out to this day. This is still going on, the harassment and the wipeouts. Now, there's been many individuals who've been paid to insert themselves in my life along the way as well. So I'm going to do individual videos on those people and those situations as well. I'll release those when it's the proper time for all of that, because they're at different stages as well, depending on what situation's going on. But I am trying to tell it all in order, unless for some reason I have to jump to the very end, because at the end, there's a giant plot twist on why all of this is going on. Now, what my mother didn't realize is that all of my memories came back that I didn't even know I was missing, due to my brain injuries, which is actually due to her crimes. And the memories and everything else I was experiencing and already putting together, clicked the entire picture all together and what's all been going on. So there is a giant plot twist. There is a reason for all of this. There's a reason for all of the control and why she has not been apprehended yet, and why there's so many individuals invested and involved in all of this, because there's been large sums of money exchanged as well. And usually somebody with a mental disorder to that degree would not be able to carry something out that long term and get away with it and continue it on. The problem is there's so much control, because this is way more than just mental disorders or personality disorders. These are serious crimes. So it's beyond that. These are very serious crimes. She does belong in prison, not a mental hospital. And you can tell due to the amount of control that's been had with all these individuals, agencies, and people along the way of everything that's happened. So, it's really hard for others to understand everything I'm talking about. That is why I'm doing so many videos, why I'm having to break it down to such an extreme degree and all these different steps along the way. I am getting there. Stay with me. There is quite a bit more information to be released, and some of the biggest pieces are coming up here very soon, so I can do the videos on those. Like, share, subscribe to the channel, and follow along as I'm continuing to expose everything, because it's going to blow here very, very soon. I'll be back with more. Thanks. Bye.